all my Crimsonites, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel, where we embrace our femininity, increase our womanly values, and celebrate our brothers. So join me on our feminine journey to learn, heal, and grow. Hey there, my Crimsonites. How we doing today on this fine Monday afternoon? I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Hope everybody was okay. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So we're going to talk about this interview that the Breakfast Club had with Larry Elder. Okay. Now, for those of you who are not exactly aware of who Larry Elder is, Larry Elder is he hosted several like radio shows, and he hosted television shows, usually far right or conservative. He is a Republican. He has a lot of conservative views on what's going on with the Black community, America in general, white America, things of that nature, right? So we all know where the Breakfast Club stands on a lot of things, these same types of issues. Recently, Larry Elder ran for governor in California. He did not win that election because that was like a recall election. And so he has a lot of views that a lot of Black people don't like. Let's just be real. Okay. He got a lot of views that Black people have called him a COON for. Said he was the black face of WS. All types of things. Okay. So this is how the general body of Black people view Larry Elder. Okay. The same boat as Candace Owens and a lot of other Black right-wing, conservative, Republican Black people. Okay. In this interview, they are basically talking about what is going on in the Black community, or what are the biggest issues that the Black community faces. Now, I'm going to allow you to I want to play it. But YouTube likes to limit the monetization when you play Breakfast Club stuff. Okay. So even under fair use, this is interesting. Okay. And things got a little bit heated. Not only was there Charlemagne and DJ Envy, but there was another lady. I didn't even catch her name. Watched the whole interview, didn't catch that lady's name. But she was very, very rude. Even if you disagree with what he's talking about, you don't got to be that rude. You should still maintain your professionalism and your decorum, even in a situation where you don't agree with what is being said. Okay. All right. Now, I may just let you hear it. I'm always Just do an overlay. I could do an overlay because I kind of want y'all to see it too. But it's not Tesla and Figaro, thank you. It's not necessary that you see it. So maybe I will do a little bit of overlay and let you guys hear it. But in any case, his original stance or some of what he says, I agree with. I agree with a lot of what he's saying in terms of not seeing ourselves as victims, in terms of fatherlessness being a very key, the destruction and not the degeneration. There's another word I'm looking for. Of the Black family, the tearing apart of the Black nuclear family is key in why Black people are in the position that they are in. I agree with that. He even says, okay, it was the introduction of the welfare system and degradation. Thank you. It was the introduction of the welfare system as we know it under Lyndon B. Johnson and the incentivization of women, particularly Black women, to marry the state and be beholden to the state and choosing the state, choosing the welfare state over and above having Black men in the house. Okay. That we agree on. I talk about that. I've talked about that almost ad nauseum on this channel. The welfare system and things of that nature. We disagreed on there being no such thing as systemic racism or systemic WS. There is systemic. We know that there is. Because the system that was put in place during the time of slavery has never fundamentally changed. That system has never fundamentally changed. Laws have changed, things have been amended, yes. But the basis of that system and how the system operates has never fundamentally changed. It has always been the same. Okay, it's always been the same. So I do agree with certain points. I do agree with not just voting Democrat just because Black people supposed to vote Democrat because Republicans are the R word. I personally think both parties are trash. Okay. Because they are two sides of the same coin. Sometimes Republicans have better policies when it comes to how the economy is affected, when it comes to how jobs are affected, and things of that nature. A lot of times they will have better policies in place. Smaller government, i.e., the government doesn't need to have such widespread say and control over what you do in your personal life. That I agree with. We don't need this, as they call it, mommy state. We really don't need it. Because this whole mommy state, that's where cancel culture come from. That's where limiting your ability to speak freely come from. And everybody's offended. And, everybody can get canceled. And it creates an environment where you can't tell the truth if the truth is hurtful to somebody's feelings. So we don't need that. I don't need the government telling me what I can and cannot do in my personal life. If I am not breaking the law, if I'm not breaking the law, then I don't need the government in my personal business. That I agree with. See, a lot of times on this channel, because I agree with certain things that Trump did and that I agree with certain points that he had, and I disagreed with the policies that a lot of Democrats put into place, including the Obama administration, that I was somehow, I was supposed to be pro-Trump and that was supposed to be a bad thing or whatever. The difference is that while I may not be a political expert at all, I never claimed to be. My channel is not even based on political talking points at all from either side. I actually understand why the system is the way that it is, why it operates the way that it is. In this conversation, which I'm going to let you hear in just a second, in this particular conversation, there are a lot of things. There are some key things missing from both ends. They're having a conversation, but they still not having the real conversation of what is the problem in the Black community. Neither of them are touching it. Neither of them are really touching the issues in the Black community. I touch it here all the time. We touch it on the Crimson Cure. If you were watching that interview and you have been a subscriber of mine for a year or more, then you should have been able to listen to that interview and say exactly what was missing out of that interview. What was the key nuances that were missing? What wasn't said? Because there was an attempt. Let me back up. The system or systemic racism or systemic white supremacy doesn't operate the way that the majority of Black people thinks that it operates. Systemic racism does not operate the way in which many Black people think it operates. It operates very differently than what we're told. And our experience should tell us that. See, he talked about fatherlessness in the home, but you can't talk about that in a vacuum. You can't talk about that in a vacuum. That didn't just happen. We got to talk about why that happened. He said something in this interview that I thought was fairly egregious. Give me 2 seconds. I'll be right back. Okay. Thank you for a bit of patience. Thank you, Greatness 81. So I agree with the stats Elder presented. Thank you, RO said Black women help white supremacy in the state rob black women, black men blind for decades. Thank you, Greatness 81. So hyenas, agents of white supremacy are the problem. Say it. And it's deeper than that, though. It's even deeper than that. So how we gonna do it? Is I'm gonna put up a quick overlay, but I'm going to allow you to listen to the interview, and hopefully it'll be all right. Okay. So here we go.
In the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 19.
Wake that ass up
early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Charlemagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. We have Teslin Figueroa with us, and we got a special guest in the building, 2024 Republican presidential candidate, Larry Elder. Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor.
How you feeling?
I feel good.
He does more than that, though. I mean, he was a radio host.
Radio host for 40 years.
Author, TV host.
Author,
New York Times best-selling list. Got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Corner of Hollywood and Vine, Southeast corner, just saying.
Okay.
I didn't know you had a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Yeah, yeah, about a handful of radio guys do, and I'm one of them.
Yeah, I think it's you, Elvis Duran,
Angie
Howard
Martinez.
Stern,
Yeah.
Big Boy. Oh, Angie Martinez.
A guy named Arthur Godfrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, let's jump right into it. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm running as an America First mega guy, and we have an America First mega guy running, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table?
You said MAGA.
MAGA.
Okay.
And the answer is, I bring a lot of issues to the table that I feel our side is not talking enough about, if at all. For example, the number one social problem in America by far is the epidemic, not of COVID, but of fatherlessness. 70% of Black kids today enter the world without a father in the home, married to the mother, up from 25% back in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. You know, when I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on, systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem. If you look at a young Black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old. A young Black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo. Young Black man, real young, 19 and under, the number one cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young Black male. Same demo for whites, the number one cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to number 4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by Black people, often against other Black people. Of the homicides in this country, half of them are Black victims, almost all killed by other Blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say Black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it. And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem. 1940, when there was blatant racism, this is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of 64, KKK was still alive and well, 87% of Blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it. The left doesn't talk about it because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white, you'll be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're Black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the black face of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers aren't in the home?
As I said, it's because in the mid-'60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. In Charlemagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government. Same thing with whites. In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home, married to the mother. Now it's about 25%, also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia, a young Black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the Black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong?
Now, before I allow that to continue, let's deal with it, because he didn't really get to the most egregious part that I'm going to allow you to hear him say. Is fatherlessness in the Black community a problem? I talk about single motherhood all the time. I talk about baby mamaism all the time. Okay? So we know that there is an epidemic of single motherhood disproportionate in the Black community. We know that. We even know why it's like that. We know where that started. That started under Lyndon B. Johnson's administration as he tried to do what he called the war on poverty and introduced a slew of entitlement programs, changed the way welfare worked to what we understand it to be today. And I talked about the confluence of that, the death of like the Black liberation movements and civil rights movements, and the rise of feminism, second wave specifically, and the way in which Black women glommed on to that. He actually talked about the incentivization of it. I don't agree with Charlemagne popping up and talking about, well, what do white people do wrong? We don't care what they do wrong. As a matter of fact, it's been documented what they've done. What Black people are missing as a group is what that has actually done to us. The problem that it actually produced. Because everything else has been a symptom of the actual issue. Baby mamaism is an issue, but it's a symptom of the problem. Poverty is an issue, but it's a symptom of a problem. Our lack of generational wealth and our seeming inability to obtain it, no matter which generation we're talking about. Symptom. Even down to talking about white supremacy. A lot of Black people don't understand that system. There is a reason why I consistently talk about values, specifically the lost value system, and specifically the confluences between biology, culture, and environment. None of that stuff happens in a vacuum. Now, it's not until this rude Teslin woman jumps into the conversation. I didn't even know she was there until she rudely interrupted everybody. I didn't like how rude and nasty and unprofessional she was. She was a typical hyena on a panel that want to overtalk and control a conversation and not really understand half of what's going on in the conversations. You just want to argue. So I pay her no real heed. Okay? Here on the Crimson Cure channel, we talk specifically about biology, culture, and environment. That is actually how white supremacy operates. It operates through those 3 channels and those 3 channels only. We talked about the lost cause narrative right after the Civil War, immediately at the commencement of Reconstruction. They reinstituted modern day systemic racism. They revamped the system to include those values that would carry forward until today. Because now we can no longer brutally enforce a system that we set up prior that allowed chattel slavery. We can't really do that anymore. It's not going to work. Eventually, people do not accept physical slavery. All slavery ends at some point because the people who are being physically enslaved are going to revolt. One of them times is going to work, and that system is going to fall. Can't completely crush the human spirit. So people are going to fight that because it's so overtly barbaric that you can't abide by it. You can't abide in it. So eventually, the fighting works. So now the laws on the books has to change. That's an environmental change. Why? Because now the biological truth and reality has to now change. Now, it took a minute for that to happen, but happen it did. Because here and there, you will see stories of a black man getting lynched or hung or something like that. Like, you'll hear them stories here and there, but not like it was during slavery and the period immediately after. It was an everyday nearly thing. Could happen at any time. And nobody would have said a word. You know, just because you change a law on the books doesn't mean that you change a people's perspective on how you are to be treated. Let me get to these super chats. Thank you, RO said, when BWC got in heaven, the black man's blood on her hands and her creamed up wound will convict her. Thank you so much, Luke Casey, for your support, sweetheart. Thank you, Micah said, the entire Moynihan report said everything Larry said. And before fatherlessness, you have to talk about the 10 life values. You got to talk about a value system. What changed? What really changed? Thank you, RO, again, saying under what God and in what Bible was the black woman created to be almost profusely the baby factory? What religion is that? Thank you so much. Real Bravado says she did her best to little boy, Mr. Larry Elder. Bump that. He's right. They just wanted to chin check this 71-year-old man who walked through stuff in life they never will. Thank you so very much, sweetheart. Thank you so much for that. There's more, but I'm going to go to a commercial break, and then we're going to come back. I'm going to let you hear more of this interview. I wasn't intending on this to be a two-parter. It may be, I don't know. It just might be a longer one. I don't know yet. but I want to get the points out that I'm trying to drive home. And this was the perfect interview to do it because it showed Black people on two different spectrums, and each side gets something right. But then there is a part that both sides miss. And that's why we keep either undershooting the mark or overshooting it. And we can't get right because we don't really understand. Anyway, after these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey, brothers, I want to tell you about a website called blackmenszone.com. Now, Black Men's Zone is a site that specifically targets Black men. It's a place where Black men talk about issues that solely affect them. Now, at Black Men's Zone, the topics will range from news to society, sports, technology, business, food and recipes. Some brothers got to cook too. Gaming, and some of your brothers like doing some of that. Health and fitness, got to get your workout on. Music, movies, and many other topics. Now, there's not many forums around these days for Black men, and because Black men have to create them. Now, this particular website is more of a forum based, something simple, not social media. You can write what you need to write, say what you need to say, get on, get off pretty quick. But if you're interested, brothers, to at least go there, and I want you to check it out, engage in the topics, go to blackmenszone.com, sign up for an account, and get engaged in the conversation.
So definitely go ahead and hit the link at the top of the chat for blackmenszone.com and become a part of the conversation or start a conversation of your own. Definitely, this is a space. Think of it almost as a barbershop online space for men to go and speak about a wide range of topics that interest them and that affect them as well. So once again, click the link at the top of the chat, blackmenszone.com, and become part of that wonderful forum. Okay, and I don't know how many likes we have or don't have, but bam, 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 bam. You got to hit the like button. Bam, bam. You got to go ahead and hit the like button if you have not. Share and subscribe to the channel also if you have not done that. Definitely go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And I definitely appreciate everyone's contributions to the channel as well. Thank you, eclectic agitators. I disagree with Larry on the man being incentivized to leave the home. Did anyone else caught that? The way that I took that is he was saying that the women were incentivized to leave the men and marry the government, essentially, which we all know that's what happened. We know where certain things began. It's why they keep going is what sometimes we miss as a group. So let's go back. The reason why I'm not showing the video is for copyright purposes. So I'll let you hear it, but I'm not going to show it on the screen for that purpose. So let's get back to it. We're going to allow them to talk a little bit longer. All right. So here we go.
Larry on.
What do you mean? What do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe that?
No, there used to be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
Oh man, there's so many.
Just give me the most important one you think.
At the top of mind, I probably say mass incarceration. Maybe.
Really? During the Great Depression, when 50% of Black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's the breakdown of the family. There's
I'm not going to. I agree with the family part. I'm a Black man who is a father to his children, and I'm a happily married Black man to a Black woman. So I'm never going to argue with that part, But I just feel like everything is black with you. Black is wrong. Black people do this and Black people do that. And when I ask you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the Black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles, where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale, where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was a Black. I think most of those who were doing this were Black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlemagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. These kids are afraid of neither. They don't have a father in the home. Cops are demoralized. They're pulling back. Their manpower is short. And as a result, you tell a bad guy you're less likely to be caught, convicted, incarcerated, crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid. Mm-hmm. When you say, what do white people do? I mean, this is a country that has struggled mightily to get over its historic racism. There was a civil war. There was a big civil rights movement. This is the only majority white country that's ever elected a black president, let alone reelected a black president. The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, LA. They all have black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlemagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64 got passed. And he said, I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Mm-hmm. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and there have been several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the three largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is the speech he gave right before he got assassinated the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair. It's wrong. And you're discouraging black people from working hard. 1990.
Okay. Mr. Elder, quick question. Let's just remove the word racism, since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system. Okay. You mentioned that the system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the black family, should certainly has some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question. So the question is, you said that the system encouraged black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of black people were Democrats, as the majority of black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time, the system. I'm just going to Charlemagne's point about white or black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the black family, I disagree. He did it with the best of intentions. And if you look at the
and that's what I wanted you to hear. See, I can't get with Mr. Larry Elder with that. Can't get with you, Mr. Larry Elder, on LBJ did that with the best of intentions. There has not been any, because you can't do it that way. There has not been any Bioculturon event initiated without a clear intent and without a clear understanding of all possible outcomes. You cannot tell me that an entire administration in this country invoked a series of laws and enforced them a particular way, but they didn't know what the outcomes were gonna be. They couldn't anticipate for the life of them what it was gonna be. That's like saying they couldn't have anticipated what redlining was gonna do. They could not have anticipated all of the Jim Crow era laws that were implemented against black people on a financial level, on a social level, in an environmental way. You can't tell me that these people do not understand what the implementation and creation of these laws and policies, whether in the public sector or in the private sector, are going to do to the people that they inflicted it upon. You don't tell me that they don't understand what the destruction of Tulsa, Oklahoma was gonna do, or the myriad of lake towns, or the destruction of the Rosewood, or the destruction You don't tell me that they didn't understand the destruction of feminism before it was introduced. You don't tell me that they don't understand going from house to house and telling Black women you can sign up for welfare if you get rid of the men in your house, and understanding that women were going to go for the survival and women were going to go for having a check or whatever without having to succumb to the system, order, and structure of any man, specifically Black men. They don't know that that's what's going to happen. They don't understand that. Don't understand when they have set up a system that incentivized up until this day the baby mamaism that we suffer, that he admit we suffer disproportionately, despite being about 13% of the population. And why we promote that? And why do we think it's okay now? Why do we think I don't need no man and no man needs to be in a home to help me raise the children that they biologically father? Or utilizing the court system for the paternity fraud and for child support scams and all of the other forms and scams that have popped up over the past few decades. You don't get to tell me that these people don't understand the outcome. If you debar the path of generational wealth for generations, and then suddenly you take some of them laws off the books, that's not going to suddenly make the people that you use it against understand generational wealth and be able to accumulate it. Because for as long as you've done that, you've also inculcated a value system within them people that they can't learn how to do that. So you don't get to, with a few strokes of your pen, decimate generations of Black people and then say you did it with the best of intentions. The best of intentions towards whom? Because it wasn't the best of intentions towards Black people. That didn't have one generation's worth or two generations worth of negative effect. They understood the outcome because the Moynihan report told you the outcome. That was done in like the 60s, if I recall. They already told you what was going to happen because they implemented certain things. This is going to be the result because they understand human psychology. You don't get a group of people that understand what a bioculturon is without them also understanding human psychology. You got to understand how biology, culture, and environment come together to even initiate a bioculturon. And what's a bioculturon? It is something that is initiated to, the purpose of it is to switch value systems either to or away from the 10 life value system or the lost value system. Either way, you could go back and forth with it. The value system you produce depends on how you change those three things or how you influence those three things. I just talked about earlier today, Tennessee taking creating a law that would substantially reduce paternity fraud by making DNA paternity testing mandatory before a man's name goes on a birth certificate. That is the environment. What will it change? What is it going to change? Why is that significant? It's significant because the women are now going to change their behavior. Now she's going to move differently biologically. Now she's going to think, especially if she starts seeing consequences happen to women who do so. If she starts seeing women go to face significant fines and significant jail time and stuff like that, the women are going to what? Oh, I can't just be married to this man and cheat all willy-nilly and know that the court systems and stuff like that and the family court is going to side with me regardless. I can't just be having babies here, there, and everywhere and then expect this man to come along and I just pin the baby on him without the court saying something to me about that. Changes her behavior. That's biological. The culture does what after that? If you change two, the third one's coming. Now the culture of what breeds paternity fraud goes away. That culture is now diminished. Not as rampant as it was before because it's not being incentivized environmentally anymore. Now it's being punished rather than incentivized. So now you have to change how you move in your personal life biologically. Pregnancies is biological. And then you're going to have that changes the culture, how the women operate with that cultural change. Why? That's why it was significant. You don't get to tell me that these people don't understand that. Black people don't understand that. They understand that. Those in charge of a system where they know that they can implement a bioculture and they know how to do so. It's Black people that don't understand it. It's us that has to get the lesson late. We're behind the 8 ball, us. Because some of us think white supremacy is some kind of boogeyman that keeps you away from doing what you want to do because of the policies on the books. That's a tiny, tiny percentage. The most important thing that keeps us from succeeding is that we don't know, we don't understand we don't know that biology, culture, and environment influence one another. We don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know that the missing piece has really been our value system. That's why we could thrive during Reconstruction where we were poor. Overt racism, overt. Not this hidden other stuff. Overt discrimination, overt oppression. How were we still able to build things? What were we doing? What were we doing differently? We don't understand that the true face of white supremacy is this. If they can get us in a value system where we operate backwards, they don't have to come lynch nobody. They don't got to redline you no more. They don't got to do it. The job has been done. They can take that. They don't have to give you real bad predatory loans no more. They don't have to do that. Because the way we look at life, the way we operate in life, we're not going to operate properly no way. Huh? We're not going to operate properly anyway. Let me get to these super chats. Thank you. I believe in me. So another victim of Timothy Hazlitt has been found. Thank you. My Sex is Strong. So thank you, Crimson, for breaking this down. As you outlined beautifully in your book, this was all intentional, and recognizing that should make Black men and Black women to turn our behavior around to move forward. Thank you so much, sweetheart. Thank you, U.S. Army retired. So keep preaching the truth. Thank you so much. Thank you, Malik, for the super chat. Thank you, Black Goku Zero. So it's safe to say that these hyenas are getting their N-word wake-up call. They definitely are. Thank you, Miss 39 Dina, sweetheart. And thank you, R.O. Said Black women had no laws to protect their wombs from the advancement of white men until after Black men fought and died nearly 400 years to win her rights of self-preservation and 64-68 civil rights. Black men's return was Black women taking pride, leaving them for white men. Thank you so much. You don't get to tell me they didn't understand the effect of the 94 crime bill after a crack epidemic, after a heroin epidemic. You don't tell me that they don't understand the effect of a school to prison pipeline. They don't know that's happening. And then they get to say, oh, it was Black on Black crime. And so you can't blame poverty, because even though a lot of y'all are poor now, we had y'all in abject poverty before, remember? And y'all was okay. Y'all was doing well. We were doing well, were we? And see, I don't go to the other side either, because I don't believe that we should be victims. Like I said, it's not a boogeyman to me. It's not a boogeyman. Oh, we can't do nothing for ourselves because, you know, the white man keeping us. See, I don't do that. Never done that. I've been trying to get us to understand it practically, where we are and why we're there practically. We want the laws to change, but we don't even understand how to change them. We don't understand. We have yet to have understood what significance a value system has. Later on in the interview, he talks about the differences between Chinese and Japanese families and that group here in America, and saying that it was at one time that they were discriminated against as well. And they were. Difference between being discriminated against and outright oppressed for hundreds of years. You don't just stop doing that. You don't just stop doing that. There's no benefit to them to just stop doing that. The Chinese and the Japanese have a strong culture. They have a homeland to go back to. They have something that reminds them of their value systems. And they can always go back because a biocultural has not happened to them. They are a homogenous people. They wasn't reset here. Why am I talking about the reset? Why do anybody talk about slavery? Because at some point, whether you understand that terminology or have that terminology or not, you understand that slavery reset us. We just don't know how it reset us. Or we like to act like we don't. Because he's right when he talks about we're not, as a collective group, we are not as poor as we were during Reconstruction and Jim Crow and all these other eras post-slavery. We aren't. We have more capital. But what don't we understand? Let's take redlining, for example. Let's take that for example. You consistently across the country deny a group of people land and property ownership at a time where land and property ownership equaled wealth. Equal wealth. And if you were in position to do so, and you acquired land and property, you were well on your way to generational wealth, or the beginning of generational wealth. Unhindered, you can figure out, even if somebody's going to make mistakes, because somebody's going to do it, you can learn and then have literacy for wealth. Be literate in wealth, how to acquire, how to maintain. Environmentally, we were stopped from doing that for generations. You either were denied a loan or you were given one, but it was predatory and set up in such a way that you would never be able to meet the to meet the loan, or to pay it back, or to meet the terms of the agreement that you signed. So the bank can come along and repossess a home or land. After a couple of generations of that, I'm going to tell you what happens to the psyche. I'm going to tell you what happens to the psyche. Black people can't own this. Because if we own it, whenever we try to own it, they just come back and take it. We don't really understand why. We don't understand the nuance as to why that's really happening or how to prevent it. How many Black families own farms, were feeding themselves and their communities? Now it ain't hardly no Black family farms in existence in America. The wealth is in the production, not the consuming. The wealth is in the manufacture, not the consume. So what we learn is we can't do this. We can't. That gets embedded psychologically. A biological embed from something that happened environmentally through law, through regulations, through policies. Are y'all following me? Once that gets embedded into the psyche, that's what we believe. We pattern our culture behind it. So now we got a culture of people that do not understand generational wealth. That has crippled us, not understanding wealth in a capitalistic country. Has crippled us in ways that I shudder to think about. Because you cannot get generational wealth off of a 6-figure job. You can't do it. You can't produce generational wealth because even though there are some of us who can create a business, many of us are still sole proprietorships. They're not really businesses. It's more so self-employment. And we'll have those businesses that we own. But what we don't do is we don't turn self-employment into business. Business is a system. Self-employment is you just work for yourself. I'm self-employed. I'm not a business yet. I intend to become one, but that's not what I am. A business becomes a business when you set up systems that anybody can come in and you can plug and play, and that system will work. And then you oversee the system. A business is a set of systems that work together successfully to produce income, assets, wealth. Because we don't really do that, we try to start it with the sole proprietorships and the entrepreneurship and things of that nature, but we get stuck because we don't understand how to move forward. That's why it's not generational, because we don't create the business, we don't create the system, and then teach the people around us the system. This is how you run it. Our children and stuff like that shy away because they don't want to come run the bakery. They don't want to come bake in the bakery. So because they don't want to come bake in the bakery, once you die, that's gone. Because there was no system left for them to come in and oversee, because the system worked and now they understand that system. You don't have to bake a cake. You don't have to bake a cake. You get other people to bake the cake. You've got someone for accounting. You've got someone, you know what I'm saying, that works all of these different various parts of the business. You just oversee and make sure that the system doesn't break down. Once a system is in place, you can actually take your hands off of it. You just oversee, you can do something else. That's why we can't pass on the store we created, or we can't pass it on. Other people pass it on. We can't pass it. That's why. Because we don't learn this. Who teaches us? Who's supposed to be teaching it? We get stuck at sole proprietorships and LLCs. We don't go into being a corporation. That's immediately where other people go. They incorporate. Why? To safeguard what they build, to safeguard their assets. We don't even get it. We don't understand that. We've gotten taught that if you flex and flaunt and stunt and have drip and all of that stuff, that is wealth. We've been crippled because we don't know how to operate. And we don't know how to operate because we've been operating backwards here. We've lost sight of who we're supposed to be. Spiritually, we've lost sight. Health-wise, we've lost sight. Family, we lost sight. Yes, so yeah, Mr. Larry Elder is correct when he talk about the breakdown of the family. But where did that come from? And why do we continue to break down in the family value? Why do we continue to promote baby mamaism, fatherlessness in the homes? And we'll rally cry with each other, well, we got to fix it, but we don't know how. Or we act like we don't know how. I'm telling you how. You have to start at your value system. You've got to start there. You've got to start with how you see yourself biologically, what you believe about yourself. This is why I don't talk victimhood. Oh, woe is me. We not woe is me. We not know woe is me. We are not inferior inherently. We're not inherently too dumb. We're not inherently criminals. We not none of that stuff. But when we stop our own progress because we don't want to hear the truth about what we do and how we put our own hands in it, how we on autopilot with the foolishness and we excuse it here and there. We on autopilot with a lot of stuff. Oh, you got to vote Democrat or else you ain't black. Joe, when the day that Joe Biden sat up there on the Breakfast Club and said that out his mouth, every black person should have been done. But you're headed to the poll anyway. You believe what they talked about. Oh, we got to get Trump out because Trump is racist. Without thinking about the 94 crime bill and who wrote that. And it wasn't even about Republican versus Democrat. It was about open your eyes a little bit. Open your eyes a little bit. There's a bigger thing at play here. Can't just let these people put a battery in your back and you just go. Better start using this stuff to some of your benefit. I don't care what kind of MAGA hat he wore. If he got some policies that eventually help us to take one step up, okay, fine. We'll do that. We can utilize that. That's what we don't learn how to do. We don't learn how to utilize stuff to our benefit. We get too caught up in the emotional part of it. Oh, I don't like him. It don't matter. You like Biden? Have you ever met him? How you know you like him? His nickname is Jim Crow Joe. I mean, get with it. Got too caught up in the mainstream media telling you who he was. This the same media that told us that Obama was the best thing since sliced bread. And what policies did he enact that helped Black people as a whole? I'll wait. We get too entrenched and too full with the optics. We got to stop doing that. We get too caught up in the emotionalism of anything that quote unquote attacks us culturally. This is why Joe Biden felt comfortable to say what he said. If you don't vote Democrat, you're not Black. Because he touched us where we live. We don't like our culture, so-called culture, being insulted. We don't like that. Because to us, that's the only thing that we have. But we don't even understand how it is controlled. We just don't like it impugned. Thank you, Wiggy Wheels. I'm starting to see that the Repubs corrode the environment of Black folk, but focus on culture issues, while the Libs corrode culture while altering overall environment. Both angles damage our biology. Thank you. Thank you for getting it. That's why both the parties are trash. That's why. I'm not just saying that to say that. They both work different ends. Thank you for saying that. They work the two ends. Thank you, Booba said no lifetime alimony, no abortions, gutting Section 8, etc. It's a redirection of an ongoing experiment. Thank you, Robert Losha said, Crimson, you're breaking it down like a teacher and it all makes sense. Thank you for spreading the knowledge. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sivan said, sister had her $300,000 mortgage paid, home foreclosed on and sold without her knowledge due to $3,000 retax owned. She's fighting it though. Thank you, Esquire of Sports, that society cannot rise above the moral level of its women. Micah, thank you, said you will truly live what you truly value. And thank you, Barry Little, for the super sticker, beloved. This is why we talk about, I'm going to say it till I'm blue in the face. This is why I've been trying to talk about the value systems from a more practical, it's not a talking point. It's not rhetoric. It's not just something to say. It's something to actually think about and something to do. It is the premise. Listen, the lost value system is the premise upon which systemic racism is built. That's the premise of it. I keep telling y'all that this chart is a graphical representation of the system of white supremacy as it applies to Black people, and it is why we cannot grow. It is why we do not break the chain. We believe this wholeheartedly for the most part. We believe in the backwards and upside downness of each value. We've embedded it biologically through our belief. It's in our psyche, and we've embedded it in our culture. Okay? We've embedded it. It's here. We believe this. We believe it with all our heart. And it leads us in a cycle. Between liberty and abundance is where the lost value system come in at. If you can't keep your value system together because bondage of one thing or another, you are being oppressed in one way or another, and then faith, you get into your spiritual value, search for unity, deep moral gathering, and then you get courage to fight based on that. We fought for the freedom. Then we attain it to a large degree. Liberty, prosperity, and freedom achieved. And then the focus turns to material things. But we lose sight of what that's supposed to mean, and it go into selfishness, all about me and mine, the individualism, no longer together, no longer a group. Then we become complacent. There's entitlement. There's self-absorption. Then we lose accountability. This stuff ain't my fault that it's going like that. Then we go into apathy, where freedom is centralized and independence is controlled. Then we go into dependence again. That's back into bondage. And as long as we're here in the lost value system, we don't get out of this cycle. This value system is what keeps us here. And it is a more positive value system that breaks it. So it keeps us confused about why we're even in this state still. Because as the environments change, as the laws change and things of that nature, and we get further and further removed away from the brutality of Jim Crow, the brutality that we experience as a group collectively in Reconstruction and in slavery, as we get further away from that, and we still don't know why we can't climb out of that hole, this is why you can't climb out. Trying to tell you where values play a significant role in how any group behaves in mass. Because he's generally talking about the whole bootstrap argument, right? Getting the fathers back into the homes and things of that nature. But that doesn't happen in a vacuum. Getting them out didn't happen in a vacuum. Getting them back in not going to happen in a vacuum either. See, the problem is we can't wait for them to induce a biocult, Iran. We always sitting around waiting on them to do that for us. They do it for them. We may or may not benefit out of it. The conditions of a people do not change unless they change what is inside of them. The condition, the external thing, the environment does not change until you change biologically. And biologically includes the way you think. Because when you change the way you think, you change the way you behave. And you change what is culturally acceptable and not acceptable. Because there was a time, not all that long ago, where it was unacceptable to shoot in the street and carjack, and that's unacceptable. And this is why the correction is so important, because as long as we don't want no correction about nothing and the culture's fine and everybody's okay. This is why I talk about the system and Zaddy and all of that type of stuff. But you notice I don't go into a whole victimhood narrative about that. Because we have to, the only reason I ever touch it anyway is because we have to understand its correlation to what we really talk about, which is values, systems, and biology, culture, and environment, and all of those sorts of things. We have to understand how the things relate, because if we keep them separate, we won't get to it. And that was the part of the conversation that was missing between Larry Elder and the Breakfast Club hosts. Nobody came to values. Nobody came to biology, culture, environment. Nobody said that. Nobody. For all the stats and all of the stuff that Larry Elder said, he never once said that we need to change our values as a group. And that's how we get ahead. Because our values got switched. How did they get switched? Why did they get switched? Who switched them? Now that we understand that, how do we switch it back? Because we're not supposed to wait on them to switch it again. We're supposed to do it. That's the purpose of understanding it. Can't wait on your ops to help you. Only a fool does that. The pulling up by the bootstraps is not the money. The pulling up by the bootstrap isn't the money. Get a better job. Get no. The pulling up by the bootstrap is understanding your value system while you're in it and how to change it. That's the bootstrap. The bootstrap is your value system. Change it. Other people have a different value system. That is why they're able to get ahead even with roadblock. I take a look in the West Indian neighborhoods of the Bronx, and they own them neighborhoods. They own the stores that they working in, the restaurants that they working in, and the apartment buildings and stuff like that that they living in. Am I saying that to say that they somehow perfect? No. But they got a different value system that allows them to see the world differently, so they move differently. And when they get to a certain point, the system see them as, N words with the hard ER too. The system sees Nigerians and Somalians and other groups from Africa and stuff like that as an N word with a hard ER. They see them like the same way. But the group themselves have a different value system that allows them to move differently than we move. And we want to say, oh, well, the government give them so many grants and the government do. That's limited. That's more limited than you think. That's not happening on the scale you think it's happening on. They didn't really break down their nuclear family because their culture don't allow it, but they biologically see each other differently than we see each other. So while we so busy trying to be like, oh, well, it's this and it's that, there's a thin line between the reasons and the excuses. There are reasons, valid ones, for why we are in the state we're in. But we have to be careful not to cross over into the excuse as to why we are where we are. Because the excuse allows you to stay in that place because you're a victim now. And you can't never blame a victim. Somebody got to come save a victim. No, we have to understand the reason. But we are not victims. We don't need excuses. And we certainly don't need our historical ops to come save us out of nothing. I don't need no type of system and nobody that run it to come save me out of nothing. And neither do you. We already got the answers. We got the answers. We just have to implement them. We can't be too lazy to implement the solutions. We can't be too cowardly to implement the solutions. We can't shy away from the solution. It takes work. And if we actually did it, it would actually be a shorter work than we think it's going to. We think it's going to take another 500 years to get out what they put in. No, it don't. It's complex and it's simple all at the same time. The trap they put us in is both complex and simple at the same time. Because if we take it piece by piece, it's so super complex and nuanced. If we look at it as a whole and understand how to get out of it, simple. Thank you so much, Steve, for the super chat and the contributions, to which I greatly appreciate. Thank you, sweetheart. We have to save ourselves, but we got to understand how. I don't know that I can put it any plainer than what I've been putting it. Hey, Nameless. How you doing, sweetheart? We cannot afford to wait and figure out what somebody else gonna do. And we can't be whining about what other people have done or are doing or how they're moving ahead. We not moving ahead because we can't figure out how to switch off that lost value thinking. Because this is a part of our culture now, and we think it's Black, and we think it's cool, and we think that's what we're supposed to do, and this is what Black people do, and this ain't what white people do, and this is what, see, we're getting caught up on focusing on the wrong thing. Worry about the wrong thing. Completely worried about the wrong aspect of this. You just change your perspective a little bit, you'll see the whole picture. We have lost sight about how to move around. We have lost sight of our value system. We lost it. They know we lost it. The stupid part is it's right there. It's right there. We looking everywhere but where it's at. And when somebody put it in our faces the way that it's in our faces on this channel, now we hem and haw about how we don't know whether or not that's really the thing. That's the only thing was missing in that conversation. That's why they couldn't agree. Because nobody came to the truth. The Breakfast Club didn't want to let go of the victim card about racism and white supremacy and systemic white supremacy and all of that. And Larry didn't want to say that it's white people that actually exists. Whatever effect that it may or may not have, it actually exists. He actually denied its existence. So we can't come to talk about biology, culture, and environment, can we? Long as we bicker like that from two ends and can't see it, we can't get to a resolution now, can we? Because that actually would have been a point of agreement. Our value system is wrong. The things that we value are actually worthless, and it's got us working backwards. And that's why we don't have family structure, because we don't value families anymore. We used to value them. See, it go beyond the welfare state. We don't actually value it anymore. You got us on social media talking about how we don't want kids and we don't want husbands and we don't want to be in a house and we don't want to do this and do that and it's slavery and it's abusive. We don't value that no more. It's not worth anything. It's not just the welfare state. It's not just Section 8. It's not just the entitlement program. That's where it started, but that is not how it's continuing. We're not families no more because we don't value that. And the propaganda machine that drilled it into our heads, they don't have to drill it no more. It's in there. You're going to teach your kids that. It's a cycle. Teach the women tell the women they don't need no men and have them act a fool with them. So now the women act a fool with the men. Oh, I don't need you, this, that, and third. Until you get to a point where the men say, well, it ain't no point in marrying nobody. Ain't no point in marrying these women because, you know, they don't act right and we can't build families with them no way. So we might as well either don't get married at all, do the whole pump and dump thing, or do the passport bro thing, or do whatever other thing that we're going to do. That's why I talk about the feminism piece. That's why I talk about all of that stuff. This isn't about bashing women or, you know what I'm saying, all this other kind of surface level rhetoric. We drilling down on it. If we want our families again, we have to value them. How do we value them? We have to change our perspective on what a family is and what that means. We can't do that until we do that psychologically. That's biology. Because now it's embedded in the culture. Long as you can listen, this kind of foolishness is embedded in the culture.
As long as you got your own house, as long as you got your own transportation, and as long as you got your own income, it don't matter what a ninja got to say.
That's embedded now. You got women preaching that to other women. Creating a cycle where the women do not value motherhood, they don't value wifehood, they don't value their role in families or any of it. They don't value none of it. So you really can't build with a woman like that. You really can't build with a group of women like that. You really can't. So now what do you do when you really can't deal with women like that? The men figure something else out. Oh, well, we can't really do that. So this is where MGTOW, this is where SYSBM, this is where Passport Bros, this is where all of that come from. You got men on different ends of a spectrum. Well, since they in thought culture, we just gonna thought them out then. Since that's what they want. I'm not gonna marry them, I'm not gonna take them serious, but I am gonna, you know, I'm gonna run through them. I'm gonna run through them because this is what they want to do. Then you got another spectrum of men say, I'm just gonna leave them alone altogether since they're not worth marrying and things of that nature. And it got us on this thing talking crazy about each other. And nobody gets it. Nobody gets why we're in this position. Why are Black men and women having a gender war? Why are we doing that? Nobody stops to think about where that came from. Why do we think it's cute? Why did the women think it was cute to get on Ricky Lake and Jenny Jones and Oprah and all that kind of stuff and talk crazy about black men? Why did they think that that was okay? Thank you, King Saul, for your contribution, sweetheart. And thank you, Arvin, that talk about social engineering. Yeah, yeah. And even with the writing on the wall, it seems like we can't get out of it. That's how strong the psychological hold is. That's how strong the biological and cultural hold is. This is why I talk about the biology. This is why I talk about the value system. That has to be done on an individual basis. I got more than 100,000 people. We can implement a change. The wave of a change is usually began by a small group of people, not a majority, but a minority. This is why I try to give lionesses a space to talk, because we may be the minority, but it's usually the small number that starts it. Small pebbles start an avalanche. The work is done individually. It's just what it is. We don't have the position to start a biocult Iran environmentally with the law of the land and the changing of the institutions. We don't have the manpower for that. But we do have to start where we can, and it's powerful. That's why they deleted our leaders, because we were starting biologically and culturally. Eventually, that environment was coming. And to a certain degree, it happened. That's why they got rid of it. You can say what you want about Malcolm X. You can say what you want about MLK. You can say what you want about the Black Panther Party. You can say what you want about them brothers and them sisters. But they understood it in a way that we did not. They understood that our whole entire spiritual value base gotta be intact. The family gotta be intact. Our health gotta be intact. Our image and our appearance gotta be intact. Our homes and our dwellings gotta be intact, so that we can positively affect mobility for us, because it's restricted right now and we needed to open up. So they understood the internal value, open up the external values. We don't get it. This is on no bandwagon about, you know what I'm saying, what Malcolm X might have used to do and what MLK might have used to do and this one and that one and what kind of idiosyncrasies or what kind of, you know what I'm saying, little stuff, the little scandal that might have went down back when he was alive. He gone now. And what you worried about it for? Well, you know, MLK might have cheated on Coretta. He gone now. And if it is, she didn't leave. You can't be more mad at it than she ever was if it was true. Thank you so much. I believe in me for your super sticker. Thank you, sweetheart. And thank you so much, Prototype. Said, love your show and I've learned so much from you, sis. Keep giving us these nuggets. You're doing God's work. We appreciate you and thank you as well. So thank you so much. Original Man said, we love you, Sister Kendra. And I love y'all too. I love y'all. And this is why I talk about what I talk about. That's why, like I said, that's why I don't get on no bandwagons about trying to dig up no dirt on none of our civil rights heroes. They gonna be heroes when you come over here. I'm leaving their legacy intact. Because if they can leave the legacies of their heroes intact, and they can build monuments to Confederate generals and all that kind of stuff, and love them and fawn over them, and fawn over the, you know what I'm saying, the founding fathers, the MLK and Malcolm X and all them brothers, Fred Hampton, and all, they're going to be heroes over here. I'm not interested in digging up no dirt on them. It don't matter to me whether the dirt was true or not. Because whatever didn't get dealt with while they was alive, oh well. It's gone now. It's a done deal. Thank you, JL. Said, what are your thoughts on systematic racism? I spent almost 2 hours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you once again, Micah. Thank you so much, sweetheart. I'm gonna go ahead and gonna wrap this up. You guys, like, share, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. Also go to crimsoncure.com and pick up your copy of Reclaiming the Black Feminine. It is on sale on my website, crimsoncure.com. All right. And you can get your physical copy of this book. Right. If you want the digital copy, you can also go on Amazon to have that as well. The links to both are in the description box, and I thank you in advance. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye-bye, Crimsonites.